Hello friends, I welcome you to this e-course on GST. Our today's discussion would be with respect to refund procedures under the GST regime. My name is Rajat Mohan. I am a chartered accountant, company secretary and DISA qualified professional. I have qualified the certificate courses on indirect taxes and written many books on GST which were published by Bharat Law House. I have written over 100 articles on tax matters which were published by Taxman, STR, VSTC, Service Tax Review, NIRC Newsletter, the Chartered Accountant General, and various others. I regularly conduct workshops for professionals and students on GST for various agencies, which includes NIRC of ICAI, NIRC of ICSI, Young Member Empowerment Committee of ICAI, Kurukshetra University, VIPS College, and various others. Before I begin to deliberate on the refund process, I would like to highlight that in August 2015, a committee set up by Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers brought out a detailed report on the refund procedures under the GST regime. My entire presentation has been based upon this report and various other documents which were available in public domain. Now let us see the 9 situations under which refund could arise. Situation number 1, excess payment of GST due to mistake. Number 2, export. Number 3, finalization of provisional assessment. Number 4, refund of pre-deposit for filing an appeal. Number 5, payment of advanced GST during investigation. Number 6, UN bodies and canteens. Number 7, carry forward of ITC. Number 8, incentives given by various suppliers through credit notes. Number 9, tax refund for international tourists. Now let us discuss each one of these situations in greater detail so as to make our understanding of refund procedures very sound. Situation number 1, wrong mention of the nature of tax. That is, there are 3 types of taxes under the GST regime: CGST, SGST, and IGST. If by chance taxpayer mentions an incorrect head or a mispayment of one tax into another has been made, in such a condition, taxpayer has a power to file a refund application within a prescribed time period so as to get the full refund of tax so paid out of mistake. Wrong mention of GSTIN. My dear friends, GSTIN is the GST registration number. In case taxpayer mentions a wrong GST registration number while making a payment, then such mistake can also be corrected with the help of a refund application within a prescribed period. However, going forward, you will feel that this mistake is not possible as the entire payment procedures under GST regime would be governed by GST network and it will not accept any payment in case GST registration number is incorrect. Third, wrong mention of the tax amount so paid. Let us take an example in this case. If assessee or the taxpayer is required to make a payment of 10,000 rupees, but instead he makes a payment of 12,000 rupees, then in such case, for rupees 2,000, either refund could be claimed or amount of 2,000 could be carried forward to future tax periods for adjustment. Now let us come to the next situation of export of goods. Under the export of goods, there are two options to claim refund. Option number one is when no payment of GST is made on the export of finished goods and the GST paid on inputs is claimed as refund. Option number two, GST is made applicable on the goods so exported and input tax credit is availed for the GST inputs. In such a scenario, refund could be claimed for GST paid on exported goods. Now let us see what is the process of taking a refund in case of export of goods. First of all, taxpayer is required to submit an online refund application on the website of GST network. Number two, such application is required to be filed within the 1 year from the date of export. Point number three, as you all know, in case of export of goods, the goods are required to cross the custom frontiers of India and such goods would be lodged by custom authorities in the website of ICEGATE. Thereby, all the refund applications for export of goods will be verified by the GST network from ICEGATE also. Professionals are trying to link GST network to ICEGATE automatically so that there is no human intervention in the entire process. Point number 4. As you all might recollect, as per the rules and regulations set forth by Government of India, all exports need to be realized within a period of 1 year from the date of export. Similar provision will also be imported into the GST law, which would require that refund would be accepted only in situations where the export proceeds are realized within 1 year from the date of export. GST network is trying its best to link the website of GST network with the website of RBI so that realization of sale proceeds could be checked online and immediately by the network. Our next point of discussion would be export of services. There is one major difference between the export of services and export of goods. The difference being goods are in physical form and whenever they cross the custom frontier of India, they are recorded by custom authorities. Whereas services are not in physical form and cannot be recorded by custom authorities whenever they are rendered. So the mode of checking of services is invoice as well as bank realization certificate. It has been proposed that the refund of export of services would be processed only when the realization for such services has been made. The other procedure would be same as under the export of goods. Now let us also see what are some other points which would be applicable for the goods as well as services both. Point number 1, 90% of the refund claims under GST would be processed online and automatically by the GST network without any human intervention. Thereby, the smaller refunds and the refunds in which there is no issues of with regard to reconciliation with the ICEGATE and BRC, quick refunds are expected. For the balance of refunds, a complete verification of documents would be made at the end of financial year and such refund would be completed within a period of 3 months. Exports being a central matter, a matter of great concern to the Government of India, would be treated as interstate supplies and therefore IGST, if applicable, would need to be paid to central government. Thereby, in case IGST is made applicable on the export, then refund of IGST would also be given by the central government itself. In case IGST is not being applied and GST paid on inputs and input services is claimed by taxpayer, then for CGST and IGST, refund would be given by central government agencies, whereas for SGST, refund would be given by state government agencies. However, you must underline that the process of filing a refund application would be same in both the procedures. Principle of unjust enrichment will not be applicable in case of export of goods or services as the recipient is located outside India. Now let us come to our next topic of finalization of provisional assessment. Provisional assessments are those assessments in which assessee feels that he requires an intervention of assessing officer to make the assessment of final duty. Thereby, in the GST return, there will be a column which will mention whether the assessee is paying tax as a final assessment or a provisional assessment. In case the taxpayer mentions that this is a provisional assessment and makes up an on-account payment of such provisional assessment, then assessing officer will take up the matter for finalization of such assessment and the order would be passed within 90 days. In such cases, if the final duty assessed by the assessing officer is less than the duty paid by taxpayer, then the refund would be granted to him by filing an online application. But this refund would be only dependent upon the fact that the incidence of GST paid by him has not been passed on to the consumer. That is, the concept of unjust enrichment has to be proved by the taxpayer. Now let us come to our next point of refund of pre-deposit for filing an appeal. As you all might be aware, in case taxpayer goes into appeal, then he is required to pre-deposit either the entire amount or a part of it before filing an appeal. In case appellate authority gives an order in favor of the appellant, then this pre-deposit needs to be refunded back to the taxpayer as soon as possible. Refund application has to be filed by taxpayer on the GST network for this refund of pre-deposit also. However, a power to withhold this refund will be given at a senior level so that this power may not be misutilized. Now let us come to our next point of refund of advance GST which was paid during investigation. Many a times in case of investigation, you will notice that investigative teams or the audit teams insist upon depositing some amount of tax then and there, which could be finally adjusted at the time of assessment. In case the tax assessed in final assessment is lower as compared to the advanced GST being submitted, then this amount will also be refunded to taxpayer after he has filed a refund application as well as a certificate by chartered accountant for proving the fact that he has not passed on the burden of GST to consumers. Now let us come to the point of UN bodies and canteens. As you all will note that UN bodies and canteens does not have a PAN number, thereby they will be issued a unique identification number which would be mentioned by suppliers on all the invoices being issued to them. Such bodies will regularly file their purchase statements along with the claim of refund. GST network will immediately match the purchases made by such bodies and canteens to the sales made by suppliers to them. In case the both match, then refund would be granted to them. For the unmatched transaction, no refund would be granted unless a correction statement for the same has been filed. Now, coming on to our next topic of input tax carried forward. First point, inverted duty structure. This means and this covers all the cases wherein GST would be charged at a lesser rate on output as compared to GST charge on inputs. Let us take an example. In case of a car being supplied by Maruti, what if the rate of tax on car manufactured and sold is 5%, whereas the car procures various inputs across the board, including seats, steering wheel, glass, iron. If the rate of tax on these inputs is 15%, then there will always be a carry forward of ITC to the extent of 10%. Although cash refunds would be granted after due audit, but still, Government of India is trying to reduce such number of situations in the country. Point number 2, stock accumulation. Wherever a dealer or a taxpayer purchases some stock, he gets an input tax credit. And if he is not able to sell that product in the same tax period, then input tax credit would be carried forward to the next tax period and refund will not be made available. Similarly, for the capital goods also, refund would not be available of the ITC, but yes, it will be allowed to be carried forward to the next tax period. Partial reverse charge mechanism. As you all know, under the current service tax provisions also we have similar provision. Thereby, we might have the reverse charge mechanism under GST also. Refund of same would be available under the GST regime. Coming on to our next slide of incentives. You all will appreciate that in practical scenario, suppliers generally pass on the benefit of discount, rebate, incentives, etc. to their customers. These benefits are generally transferred on a yearly basis. As to what will happen on the credit of GST on such credit notes. This report makes it amply clear that refund would be available subject to an application being made together with the certificate of a chartered accountant which certifies that no credit, no GST burden has been passed on by the taxpayer. Besides this, both supplier and buyer will furnish the details of credit note or debit note as may be applicable in their returns so that simultaneous adjustment can be made at both the ends. dual benefit of GST would not be given. Coming on to our ninth and last situation of tax refunds for international tourists. You must note that in various countries like Singapore, Canada, Australia, we have similar provisions wherein a foreign tourist comes to their country to spend a vacation, and while leaving their country they take with them some goods on which GST or VAT has been paid. The duty so paid is being refunded to them then and there. I myself is a witness to such a practice in Singapore in 2012. The refund application was processed within a short span of 10 minutes. We'll have similar provision in India also, but whether the speed and accuracy in India would be that of Singapore model or not, we'll come to know in years to come. Moving on to various other aspects of a refund, first being time period for filing of refund. The time period allowed for filing a refund application is 1 year from the relevant date. And as to what is the relevant date, we must move on to our next slide, which discusses the relevant date in a very detailed manner. First, in case of mistake, refund application shall be made within 1 year from the date of payment of excess GST. In case of export of goods, refund application shall be filed within a period of 1 year from the date of order of export by the custom officer. In case of services, refund application shall be filed within 1 year of the date of BRC. For provisional assessment, refund application shall be filed within a period of 1 year from the date of finalization of order. Appellate authority's order. Refund application in such cases shall be filed within a period of 1 year from the date of communication of such order. In case of investigation, also within a period of 1 year from the date of communication of the order. For the partial reverse charge mechanism, refund application can be filed within a period of 1 year from the date of service. UN embassies, canteens, embassies might file their refund claim within a period of 1 year from the date of payment of GST. For inverted duty structure, as this is generally given at the year end, a refund application has to be filed within a period of 1 year from the last day of financial year, which is 31st March. Moving on to what would be the process of refund. Process of refund will be very simple, and as much as possible it will be in a paperless electronic online form where an applicant will log on to the website of GSTN and file a refund application. Acknowledgement number would be generated and sent to the applicant via SMS and email. After receipt of this application, jurisdictional officer will get the application of taxpayer and he would be given a span of 30 days to examine such application for any deficiency. If there is any prima facie deficiency with regard to papers, etc., he will send back the application to appellant to file it with various other documents. Once a reply has been received by jurisdictional officer and he finds the application to be complete, then he will check the application with regard to various provisions of GST law. Example, time of receipt of application, reasons for refund, payment of tax, date of export, relevant date, etc. Then the jurisdictional officer will also check for the chartered accountant servicing with regard to non-passing of GST burden by the taxpayer. Once the officer is satisfied with every matter, he will electronically sanction the refund, which will go directly into the account of taxpayer through NEFT, RTGS or ECS. As you all know, every refund application will have a cost involved. Thereby, For smaller refunds in the range of 500 to 1000, it has been fixed that such refund will not be granted. Now coming on to a very important topic of pre-audit. As the name suggests, for some big refunds, such refund would not be granted until unless a detailed procedure of pre-audit has been sanctioned and pre-audit has been conducted to prove the accuracy of such refund so calculated. It is expected that the pre-audit threshold will be put up at least to rupees 1 crore. Now coming on to the term of post-audit. Post-audit is nothing but is like a scrutiny assessment completed under Income Tax Act. This is a very important point under the GST regime. If refunds have to be if refunds are to be credited within a period of 90 days, then tax officers must be given ample time after getting the refund to taxpayer, wherein once the refund has been given to taxpayer, assessing officer can call all the details and documents with regard to said application and not with regard to all the accounts of taxpayer. It is generally expected that threshold limit will be put up at rupees 1 lakh for normal taxpayer and 2 lakh rupees for certain prescribed applicants. Interest. Refund shall be credited in the account of taxpayer within 90 days. If not, then interest at the rate of 6% would be paid. Or in case of default in the payment of interest, interest would be paid at the rate of 18%. I thank you all for giving me a patient hearing. I hope the process of refund has been made clear to each one. Even if you fail to understand any provision under the refund or any other provision with regard to GST, feel free to write me anytime rajat.mohan@icegate.org. I also urge you to join us on the website of gstsms.in to get regular free mobile updates with regard to GST. You can also check our videos, documents, presentation, news, etc. on GST on this platform. Thanking you. Have a nice day.